SuperTalk Mississippi Media Production.
Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to MidDays, SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, along with Rhino in the Element Wealth Studio, guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music on this
Friday, y'all.
It's the first Friday of 2026 and the second day, the day after New Year's. We could just go on describing it for a while. It's kind of a monumental day for the Ole Miss Rebel Nation as the football team took care of business down there in the Sugar Bowl against Georgia. And now there are only 4 remaining in the college football playoffs. We're down to the semifinals. And only one SEC team in it standing, and that's Ole Miss. I was there. Got to tell you that I crawled into bed about 4:30 this morning. So I'm surprised my voice isn't a little crackier from yelling in the Superdome. You know what? When you're inside at a football game, it's loud. It's a bunch louder than it is when you're outside. That place was rocking and rolling. What a bunch of fun it was. Really, I think the fans and certainly the viewers across the country were treated to what I thought was a pretty good game. But how bizarre was that finish with the clock? So the stage crew, it's a good thing that overtime is now deductible because I think they worked a little overtime before they got that stage set in and out and in and out. So I got to tell you, I saw what happened. There was a safety, as you know, and then Georgia is forced to kick. Now, in the old days, you used to punt. Now it's a place kick because they place kick.
Free kick or something.
It's a free
like
kick,
It's got a different name.
Okay, gotcha. Well, so they attempted an onside kick and recovered it. But I noticed with 1 second remaining on the clock, they did that. And I just happened to catch the whichever one of the referees is responsible for signaling upstairs when to start and stop the clock, right? And I just happened to catch after the Georgia player fell on the ball, on the ground, recovering it, didn't move with the ball. No time is supposed to go off at that point, right? Well, I noticed him signaling to run the clock. Clock goes out. Place goes crazy. Game over. Then they had all this talk and controversy. But as soon as I saw that, I said, you know what? I don't think that's right. No time is supposed to go off. That'd be like if you kicked it into the end zone and somebody went and downed it, which is not required, of course. Once it goes in the end zone, as you know, it's over. In the old days, it wasn't like that. I was at the Arkansas game when Ole Miss made such a boo-boo and gave up a touchdown. That was up in Arkansas. But nonetheless, I saw that happen thinking, wait, that's not right. And sure enough, it wasn't. And a controversy ensued, and they had to get the stage off the field. Oh, my gosh. What a crazy mess that was watching it. But a lot of fun. Congratulations to the Rebels and to the team. And it's kind of surreal, isn't it, Rhino? Because it was a short month ago, less, that we were all up in a tizzy about Lane Kiffin and that controversy, which happened to occur during the Egg Bowl game, which was the day after Thanksgiving. And, of course, that consumed not only the sports news, but just the standard news across the country. And that seems like such a distant memory now. Of course, you guys probably heard it's reported that he requested the opportunity to be part of the broadcast team, maybe as an analyst or at least be interviewed or something, and they declined, which I think is a good move. But I think he's trying to be relevant, figured out. But he did get him, $250,000 bonus, I think, for Ole Miss winning. That's twice, right? So they've won.
I think it's actually his third bonus because he got the bonus for making the playoff, bonus for winning round one, and now bonus for winning round two.
Okay, and then a big one.
But the bonus is being paid by LSU.
LSU, right. He was able to, or Jimmy Sexton was his agent, prolific sports agent, negotiate that as part of his contract where he's actually getting paid for Ole Miss's postseason success, even though he ain't the coach. He's the LSU coach, and LSU's paying him for that, which is just the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. But I guess that illustrates just how desperately they wanted Lane Kiffin as their head coach. So I want to say that he stands to get a big old, like $500,000 bonus if they were to be fortunate enough to win the national championship. Really bizarre. Just because Ole Miss is succeeding in the postseason. I thought it was 1.5 to 1 fan ratio, the Ole Miss fans to the Georgia fans. It kind of seemed like it. The Superdome, though, was I thought they did a good job just in orchestrating the crowds and the way all that was handled. I thought it was well done. Had a big sort of pep rally and some musical performers out in the big open area between the Hyatt and the Superdome. The doors didn't open until 5, and that was jam-packed with people waiting to get in. It was good. Well done. A lot of fun. But Happy New Year, everyone. We're all buckled up, ready to go with 2026. It's Captain Chris Turnipseed. He, of course, is the director of Mississippi Highway Patrol Public Affairs. He'll join us at 10:20. And then Kelly Bennett from SuperTalk Mississippi News updates us on all the news from across the Magnolia State as we ring in the new year. That's coming up at 11:20. And once again, looks like a lot of people went ahead and scheduled a day off in this building because the parking lot is fairly empty today. Good for them. Because, it's back to the grind in the salt mines on Monday. And this place will be rocking and rolling. And then, don't forget, it's the legislature back in town on Tuesday. Oh, boy, they'll be caviling in next Tuesday. And then Ole Miss travels to Phoenix, to Glendale, Arizona, to play in the...
It's on Thursday, right?
Next Thursday, right, the 8th, a week from last night's game. That would be the semifinals. They'll be taking on the Hurricanes.
They're going to be dragging again next Friday because it's out in Phoenix. That's going to be a late one.
Yeah, I'm going to have to talk to management about the schedule there. Trying to get out there and take in what is really unprecedented history for Ole Miss, that's for sure. Been a long time.
I just double-checked the Google box. It says 6:30, and usually that's localized, so maybe it won't be as late.
I think it's 5:30, right. Now, I have to think about that this time of year because Phoenix does not convert to daylight savings time. They don't observe daylight saving time. Arizona does not. So I think the time change this time of year may be 2 hours, right? Is that right? I may have it backwards.
It says it's only an hour behind us.
Okay, it's 2 hours. That's right. When we spring forward for daylight saving time and we add the hour, that's right. Then the gap in the delta is 2 hours. It's consistent with the difference between Central and Pacific time, even though Arizona is in the Mountain time zone, but they have a bit of an exception there. Yeah, So I probably wouldn't make it back in time for that one. But 4:30 this morning is when I rolled in. That place was crazy. And I got to tell you, I think most people stayed down there because between New Orleans and here in central Mississippi, 55 was like nobody on it. Of course, that's 1:30 in the morning. You wouldn't think there'd be too many people on it, but it indicated not many returned after the game last night, certainly traveling into Mississippi. But that place was rocking and rolling for sure, a lot of fun. Well, we're going to take a break right now. Elvis bumping us into this segment. How appropriate for January 2nd here in Mississippi. We're going to bring in Captain Chris Turnipseed, the Director of Mississippi Highway Patrol Public Affairs Division. We'll get an update from Department of Public Safety concerning the New Year's holiday weekend. Stay with us.
I'm all shook up.
Dr. Michael
T Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Bring it on! Middays with Gerard Gibert.
It is on.
On SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. We're still waiting to get connected with Captain Chris Turnipseed. So Rhino and I were just looking up Kiffin's bonus structure from his LSU contract. This bonus paid to him based on Ole Miss's run and attainment of certain bonus opportunities in his contract. $150,000 he received for making the playoffs. $250,000 he was paid for Ole Miss's first round win versus Tulane. That was the quarterfinals, and then $500,000 just for getting to the semifinals. $750K for getting to the national championship. If they were to beat Miami in the semifinals next week, of course. And then $1 million. That's just incredible if they win the national championship. Being paid by LSU to their new coach, Lane Kiffin, the former coach of the Ole Miss Rebels. He was successful, he and his agent, Jimmy Sexton, who represents most of these high-profile college and even pro coaches and the like. That's a pretty sweet deal. See what happens there. Mark from Gulfport, Gerard, are you going to Arizona for the game? Working out the details on that right now, Mark. Appreciate that. Yeah, David in Pascagoula says the game is 6:30 our time. So, all right, we got the captain? Yes, sir. Captain Chris Turnipseed, Director of the Mississippi Highway Patrol Public Affairs Division. Good morning, Captain.
Doing good. Happy New Year to you. How y'all doing?
We're doing great. Thank you, sir, for taking a moment to join us today. Give us an update how we've been doing over the holidays here. And, of course, we still got a busy travel weekend in store for us right now, right?
It's still busy. We ended the period last night at midnight. Proud to report we had no fatalities over the New Year's holiday travel period. So that is a good thing. I'm elated here. I'm sitting here working on totals right now as we speak, adding things up, and I haven't gotten all the enforcement totals done yet, but I'm still receiving some of the paperwork from the districts across the state and was looking and counting things up. About 95 crashes through the holiday, which almost 100, but none of them were fatal. About 18 injuries in all of those, but most important number is that big zero deaths.
Yeah.
Through the break, though. That is something to celebrate here, and that's starting out the new year good. That's
absolutely. How does that compare, if you happen to know, Captain, to last year?
Last year, I believe I believe it was one fatal crash.
Okay.
On the New Year break. But it's one of those things that, you start off with fatalities, and then, it's just not a good start to the year. And we always, it's the first zero I think we've recorded in quite some time. I'd have to go back and look through several years of paperwork, which I have not done, but that zero stands out to me this morning.
Yeah, that's good. Well, we, of course, appreciate the men and women of the Mississippi Highway Patrol for being out and about and helping us keep our motorists safe and our roads traveled in good form. They do a great job with that. And is this another situation, Captain, when it's kind of an all-hands-on-deck because we do have an increase in the traveling public?
We had a lot of extra troopers out. A lot of guys that would have normally been off were working this weekend, so we had a lot of extra manpower, a lot of assigned patrols throughout the holiday where they give them stripped different areas high visibility areas where there's a lot of traffic where they won't to be seen. And I'm sure that there's a lot of reports of a lot of checkpoints, making sure everybody was buckled up and there weren't any impaired drivers on the road. I'm still working on those numbers, and I'll have those out to the media here probably within the next couple of hours. But they were definitely out doing their part, and heard lots of reports of people calling and saying they're seeing a lot of checkpoints and a lot of troopers. So the guys and gals did their job, and it resulted with zero deaths. So
good news.
Proud of them for that, and we just got to keep this rolling into the new year for sure.
Yes, sir.
Maybe it'll be a good sign of good things to come for this year.
I'll buy it. Yes, sir. I like it. Well, I traveled to the Sugar Bowl yesterday and then back last night and noticed that there's a stretch of 55. It's south of Brookhaven. I think it's more around the Macomb area that there's construction going on. And down to one lane, I believe on both sides, both north and south, and it's kind of tight in there. Folks need to be careful going through there, Captain.
Definitely, and we always say put down your phones and stuff while you're driving.
Yeah,
but those little areas will sneak up on you, and if you ain't watching the road, you're going to run into some problems, especially when it's down to one lane, and it's some of those lanes are when it's one lane, it's not much wider than a sidewalk.
Yeah, that's what I noticed.
You got to be all hands on deck when you're traveling through that.
Yeah,
I'm sure it'll be a lot, and there will be some traffic today. I'm sure y'all came back from the Sugar Bowl. I'm sure a lot of people spent the night and stayed, or will be coming back. And that 55 I can guarantee you, it'll get a lot of attention today because they're anticipating a lot of folks traveling back from the football game. And congratulations to the Rebels, by the way. How about them Rebels?
Absolutely. That's pretty neat.
That was a great win.
It was.
Great representation for Mississippi. We're proud of them for sure.
Absolutely. Amen. Yes, sir. So, and I saw quite a few troopers on the 55 patrolling those roads as they should be yesterday with a fair amount of traffic. But you're so right. I just wanted the public to know about that. It gets pretty narrow. There's some sections of the entire stretch there where you've got the concrete barricade.
Yeah, the barrier.
Yeah, the barrier there, I should say. And, I mean, you're right. It's super close. You really need two hands on the wheel right there when you're driving through.
Those always get your heart beating a little bit when you go through that.
And slow down a bit.
Not much room for error, for sure.
Not at all. So are there any other areas, Captain, that the public needs to be aware of that you can share with us that they just might want to be extra careful?
That's probably going to be the main one.
Okay.
There's a few. I know they're still working a lot of that down there around Hattiesburg, in the Hattiesburg area. Every time I travel through there, there's a different piece on 5920 going down through that area.
Yeah,
it changes constantly. They'll shut down a lane, and then they'll open the lane, and then shut down another. Those are the main ones that I'm aware of right now. But yeah, it's a pretty big project going on down there on 55.
Yeah,
and
it is.
Maybe they'll get through with it here pretty soon. Those are pretty extensive projects.
Yeah, and
tend to take some time.
As I recall, that section it was in disrepair, and it needed some repair to restore the smoothness, because there were some bumps down there, as you recall, and those were dangerous as well. Just that concrete can just shift around a little bit on the interstates. So, yeah, folks certainly should be careful. I mean, I will say that it seems like that it took forever, but, man, 49, in central Mississippi, going through Florence and Richmond, what an improvement that stretch is compared to what it used to be. And it seems like every time I drove through there, north and south, you would encounter crashes, that were being worked through there. It seemed like that was common. Has that quieted down somewhat since the roads have been improved considerably?
Well, I mean, there's always some little projects going on, and
sure, it's
not. I mean, we've had some. There are crashes there that happen in those construction areas from time to time. Not as much as you think. Usually, there will be, as part of these overtime details and stuff. There will be. They'll have an officer or somebody sitting in construction areas, kind of like they do in other states, with blue lights on, trying to get a little bit of attention from the public to slow them down. Those guys are mainly there, not necessarily to, not write tickets or anything or anything, but it's just an extra precaution, an extra level of measure they take just to try to get people to pay extra attention to those. And we find that those units sitting there with the blue lights on are pretty effective in getting the people slowed down. Occasionally,
absolutely,
from time to time, there is a little bit of, I guess you would call it paint swapped, or a brush with some stuff that we have to tend to. But they're not as. I mean, it is a scary feeling going through those areas, but it's not quite as bad. People tend to pay more attention there than they do, and are more on high alert when they come through that than they are on areas that are not under construction, and people let their guard down and figure it's a good time to pick up your phone and check what's going on, and
absolutely
they're not paying attention. But those construction areas usually get people's attention, kind of like you were explaining to me. That's a source of stress there when you're driving through it. So
we got to go, Captain.
Do pretty well there.
We got to go. Appreciate you, sir, and all the troopers. Happy New Year. We'll talk soon.
Yes, sir. Happy New Year, and we will be talking to you soon.
Makes you feel alright. I'll get you anything, my friend, if it makes you feel alright. 'Cause I don't care too much for money, but money can buy me love. I'll give you all I've got to give if you say you.
Welcome back, everyone. It is Middays. SuperTalk Mississippi, live from the Element Wealth Studio. First show of 2026 here, sandwiched in between New Year's Day on Thursday when we were off and the coming first full week of 2026 with the legislature back in session. And I ran into Congressman Michael Guest and his family at the game last night, and he, of course, headed back to Washington as well. They got to get back in that Capitol because guess what? We're running out of money again at the end of the month.
Second verse, same as the first, a little bit louder and a little bit worse.
Yeah, man. We're running out of money. We'll see what they can come up with. Gee whiz. Also, I got to point this out. I thought there was a bit of an act of class on the part of Ole Miss quarterback Trinidad Chambliss after he approached Georgia's quarterback, Gunnar Stockton, who's also very good. And they had a little embrace and conversation post-game that caught the attention of news outlets and so forth. I thought it was pretty cool. And, sometimes you got to be careful how you handle those situations. After a defeat in a intense sporting competition, you really just kind of want to be left alone. Anybody who's played sports understands that. And especially if it's your opponent that just defeated you, they got to be careful with how they handle that. And I could point to some situations in my playing career, my youth sporting coaching career, youth sports coaching career, where, that's just inappropriate. Even as a fan, I've had that happen. But it looked like he handled it right. I don't know what the gist of the conversation was, but Gunnar Stockton, the Georgia quarterback, appeared to be receiving whatever Trinidad was saying to him well, and seemed to know how to fashion and shape his conversation. What about the dang kicker, though, before I get off this subject? It's just incredible. I believe that the place kicker for the Rebels set 2 records, if I'm not mistaken, in the Sugar Bowl, maybe in postseason play. Incredible. The kicks that he booted through, 55 and 57 yards, I believe. And I'm telling you, they had room to spare and were right down Broadway. I was a bit shocked, and especially the 40-something yarder he hit to clinch the game at the end. Amazing amount of pressure on somebody. And I couldn't help but think, man, if he misses this, people are brutal. They'd have just unloaded on him relentlessly. People are going crazy like, dude, you get your butt out there and kick that football. Do you know how hard that is? First with the pressure, with the whole dang country watching you, and your rabid fans in attendance. I get it. That's what they do.
That's part of why Pat McAfee has his whole kick for charity thing.
Yeah.
Or kick for scholarship.
Yeah.
I don't know what he calls it. I'm not a regular viewer of the College Game Day, but yeah, I mean, he was a kicker. He understands the difficulty in it, and he likes bringing in the everyday average Joe and going, here, you give it a shot. See, it ain't that easy.
Well, exactly right. Set Sugar Bowl records. I just want to make sure I was reporting that correctly.
Yeah, I knew it wasn't the NCAA record because it recently got topped by an NFL player, which they never thought that would happen because the NCAA record was 69 yards. And I just went blank on the guy's name, but it was an NFL kicker that kicked a 70-yarder recently this season. 70, wow. Yeah.
That's incomprehensible. Well, he kicked a 55-yarder, did Canario, and that was in the first quarter of the game. That was his career long and a Sugar Bowl record. Okay. I didn't know that. The previous Sugar Bowl record, 53-yard kick from Oklahoma's John Carroll in 1972. That's a long kick in 1972. A lot has changed since then in kicking. And then he made a 56-yarder. I said 57. 56-yarder to break his own record with 2:13 remaining in the first quarter. So that's right, 2 record-breaking field goals in the first quarter. The other thing I observed that I thought was unusual, not a penalty called in the first quarter. Not a penalty. Usually,
wasn't a whole lot of penalties in the game.
Very few. They seem to let them play, except some pass interference calls against Ole Miss. A couple of those were questionable, and then the big missed call, the face mask that the whole world saw. And that was like right even with where I was sitting there, and it was pretty clear. But that's kind of neat, though, to make those kicks. And it's one of those things where the ball comes off his foot and it's an explosion. And I noted that when the Georgia kicker came out, he missed one, short, remember, and his was kind of spinning real fast end over end. You knew it was going to fall out of the sky. Wasn't quite the same as Canero's. So I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, Carnero. I haven't heard it a lot this year, honestly. But breaking the Sugar Bowl record twice in one quarter is quite the feat. So, pretty neat stuff. Historic field goals. It looked like that was all Ole Miss was going to be able to do for a while, is kick field goals with it being 6-0 there. So, should be fun. Yeah, somebody on the C Spire text line said that kick last night would have gone 70. I agree. It just seemed like it was still rising as it crossed over the crossbar between the uprights there. It was quite the kick. Of course, you are in a windless environment for what that's worth, so the ball travels pretty well. And you know the other thing, Rhino, is it ain't like kicking off the grass as it used to be. That kicking off that turf, that's what the kickers say is a little different situation. So makes it a little better. But, man, quite the event for sure. All these excited Ole Miss fans are driving rather fast going north on the C Spire text line. Be careful, man. Gary in the Berg said three keys to Ole Miss's win. Chambliss making incredible plays, throws, scrambling. He's the best quarterback in the country. Defense was great in holding Georgia to 3 at the end of game, gave them a chance. O-line was really good, giving Chambliss time to throw. Georgia is very hard to block, and they did it well. I agree with all your analysis there, Gary. Sitting there in the stand and watch it. Amanda from Pike County says, quite the feat. Yeah, great pun. Didn't even think about it. Thanks for pointing that out, Amanda. Oh, man. Well, you know what else happened yesterday? Old Zoran Mondami got sworn in. I got to tell you, this bothers me. It bothers me that people in America's largest city are embracing the garbage this guy's spewing out there. I caught some of his speech, read through some of it, read through some of his analyses, some of the analyses, I should say, of his speech. You have to pardon me today, folks, with 3 hours sleep. The old brain's not working quite as it should be. But the thing that bothered me the most, one of the statements, Rhino, in his speech, quote, we will replace the frigidity. Oh, aren't they clever to dream up such a word in an inauguration speech? Who says frigidity in an inauguration speech? A communist, a Marxist, I guess? Let me continue. We will replace the frigidity of rugged individualism with the warmth of collectivism. Oh, but he's not a communist. Nothing of the sort. So, I'm sorry. I know that I've mentioned this numerous times on this program, but I got to do it again. And that's the story concerning Sandia Labs. This made me think of it immediately. If you don't know who Sandia Labs are, they're the folks that make this country's nuclear weapons. Literally. This is the first story I recall sharing on this program in 2020 when you saw all the DEI, CRT, woke crap just sweeping the country in the corporate boardrooms. In this particular company, Sandia Labs, who makes our nuclear weapons, sent their executives away for a seminar, and it was designed to just make sure they understand how harmful their whiteness is. But what they said, I'll get to it on the other side of the break. You want to hear this. It bears repeating, and now we're seeing it manifest in this Zoran Mondami's inauguration speech. Coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
In life and in...
Head out on the highway, looking for adventure, and whatever comes our way. Yeah, darling, go make it happen. Take the world in a loving embrace. smoking lightning.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. Thanks for joining us on this January 2nd, first broadcast of the brand new year. I got to tell you, I'm going to continue this story about Zoran Mondani, but you got to approach the new year with a bunch of optimism, right? I feel good about it. I really do.
I mean, you don't have to.
You should,
just
though.
Better for your psyche.
Agree. Your well-being, your mental stability. It's the human experience. We're going to encounter issues and problems, but, man, let's kick it off with an attitude of optimism. I'm super optimistic.
It's part of the reason why liberals are so miserable all the time is because they wake up every single day, and one of the first things that enters their head is they're looking for a reason to be offended or upset about something.
You're so right about that. It's like
even if they have to imagine it, they're going to get upset about something.
It's a mission. It's like the top task on their list every day. What can I get upset about? It's either that or a bunch of whataboutisms. I'm seeing the whataboutisms on this Tim Walz welfare scandal deal. What about? I'm so sick of that crap. I'm going to get to that in a minute. But first, all right, Sandia National Laboratories. This is a federal contractor that makes America's nuclear weapons. Back in 2020, everything, of course, kicked off in 2020 in the wake of the George Floyd incident. And all these companies had to go out and virtue signal and try to hold my beer, one-up each other. And so this company says, okay, we're going to send our executives off for some diversity training. And we're going to teach our executives about eliminating racism, sexism, and homophobia in the organization. And they also, I believe, had them write apology letters to so-called marginalized people. These little code words that are just embedded in the left's vernacular. The reimagined and the marginalized and all that stuff. So they sent them away, but this is what they taught. They taught them. And, of course, it was Christopher Rufo. He's a visiting fellow at the Heritage Foundation, but he's on his own now. At the time he was. He's on his own now, has the City Journal is the name of his media outlet. And he's just kind of positioned himself right in the middle of all this DEI stuff. Now, back then, it was more CRT, critical race theory. And that kind of evolved into DEI to include more of the marginalized people. But Rufo, having positioned himself as one who is not afraid to report and expose all these scams, what they are, people that disagree with this, that attended these workshops, these seminars in schools, at private companies and government agencies, would send him stuff, photos, screenshots of the materials, and this is one of them. And he says, and this is back in 2020, that this group, Sandia Labs, shared and conveyed to their executives that the, quote, roots of white male culture consist of rugged individualism, a can-do attitude, hard work, and striving toward success. The participants were taught, these all sound good, but in reality, they are devastating to women and people of color. Huh? Striving toward success? Can-do attitude? I mean, that's just how bizarro things got. Okay, so now we got this loon Zoran Mondani, and I just read to you what he said in his speech. We will replace the frigidity of rugged individualism with the warmth of collectivism. In other words, I'm putting a gun up to all the people who have some means and some assets. I'm confiscating those, and I'm giving them to these losers over here. That's what that means. Collectivism. Do they not have history books? Has he not read those? Hadn't that been tried before? In communist Russia and the USSR era of the 50s and 60s, 70s? In North Korea? In Cuba? In China? It sucks. People die, by the way. That's not an exaggeration, as you know. Oh, wait, you're in the way of the agenda of collectivism. You got to go. Right? That's exactly what they do. That's what the mayor of New York is campaigning and advocating for. Time for a break. Fox News, SuperTalk News, coming back with more middays. BusinessJournal.com, Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
And now, the talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
That's what I like to listen to.
You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert. Here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio on this
Friday, y'all.
We got Kelly Bennett coming up in the next segment. She'll do a rundown of the news across the state of Mississippi, but just more about this Zoran Mondami. And I mean, I'm serious. I know people say, well, that's New York. They're crazy, and we're down here. My concern is, Rhino, is that this is indicative of what might be a trend. Now, I couldn't find a video clip that wasn't watermarked. You know, I have a kind of a partial subscription to a service that uses AI to scour the prior day's television and to some extent social media, but mainly reports, interviews on across the spectrum of all the networks, and compiles that into an email, and it's like 40 or 50 clips every day, short clips, but they're digitally watermarked, if you will, and you have to pay to unlock that. But it is a good source of information. But where I'm going is I didn't realize this until I got my morning email from that service. There was the tax the rich chant going on during the inauguration ceremony, swearing in Bernie Sanders handling that duty. That's all you need to know right there. They're kindred spirits, aren't they? Bernie's so proud of his little communist that he's got. But I don't get that. What am I missing here? Why are they so obsessed with this taxing the rich? Do they want their money? Is that it? Or do they think we need the rich to pay for programs? Which, hadn't we learned after watching what happened in Minnesota? People are sick of this fraud and misspending of their taxpayer dollars. And I'm going to remind you once again, all that federal money that was laundered in Minnesota back to Somalia, half of it is going on the debt tab. That sucks. People are sick of it. And now we got this Mondami person in there who's got all these supporters who are chanting, tax the rich. They're the only reason you got anything, you fools, especially in New York with such a concentration of wealthy people, because it's the financial capital of the world. That's where people go with money. They power our dang economy. Their capital powers our economy. And, Rhino, you know this. That's something that neither the left nor just a lot of people in general don't get. All this great stuff that was invented and innovated and brought to market by American ingenuity, where the hell they think the money came from? You think you go to a bank and say, hey, look, I need a few $1 million for air for me to go get this product that I have an idea for to market. No. That comes from investors that are willing to take massive risks because it's like, we're going to make a lot of money or nothing. That's the way it works. The simple risk-reward ratio, dynamic. That's the beauty of capitalism.
But the average leftist cannot comprehend that. The average person chanting tax the rich is the kind of person that can't wrap their head around the fact that they're never going to be a millionaire selling sweaters for cats or sitting in a paint bucket and smearing their butt on canvas. Why won't anybody buy my butt painting? I should be a millionaire. I tried really hard.
That is so dang true. Oh, man. But I got to continue on this Sandia Labs deal, by the way. This seminar, and this was happening a lot in that era, it's died down. It's scaled back quite a bit. But the big thing was, let's bring all the white executives in a room and make them essentially apologize for everything that's bad in the world, right? They're the fault. They asked them, this is back in 2020, but it's relevant because we got this mayor of America's largest city that's kind of reigniting this narrative. It asked the white males on the executive team to recite a series of white privilege statements and male privilege statements. It concluded with its white male participants writing letters of apology to marginalized people whom they may have harmed. It's just unbelievable. Now we got a mayor that thinks like this. He's kind of breathing new life into what I thought and hoped was a fad that would die down, but I guess I'm wrong because these loons in New York just elected this nut. Oh, man, a spokesperson for Sandia Labs, they told Rufo that inclusion and diversity are, quote, defining elements of our culture. We welcome multiple perspectives. That welcome, that's another buzzword. We are committed to a welcoming. They all say the same. Just mix the word, change the order of the words up a little bit, and it's just horse hockey word salad.
We're holding space for your truths.
That's right. And these are the people that make our nuclear weapons. Maybe I'm out on a limb here. Can't we just make bombs that work in case we have to use them, and we hope we never do? Just build them such that they're flawless, they're effective, and the bad guys say, don't mess with the United States because they'll unleash holy hell on those nuclear weapons. That's what I want Sandia Labs to do.
Sorry, Gerard, that's too close to striving.
That's right. You're right about that. Striving for success.
You must follow the liturgy of the leftist woke church.
I'm telling you, man, people are sick of it. And with this deal in Minnesota, people want to see a perp walk. They really do. Now, I did see, you probably saw it as well, reports that Republicans in the House are inviting old Tim Walz, the governor, and Attorney General Keith Ellison to the Hill to do a little splaining.
And that's why you're seeing more and more people talking about going on strike when it comes to paying or filing taxes.
Yeah, there is a trend.
It's pretty dang obvious to anybody with a functioning brain and working eyes that something is afoot in Minnesota. And what do we get from congressional GOP? A strongly worded letter.
That is true. And so I'll just say this. I think that clear-eyed, clear-thinking, rational Americans want to see accountability. It's just simple as that. And that doesn't mean bring them in and do a little questioning and slap them on the hand, right? They want to see something that would serve as a deterrent. That's the whole purpose of punishment, as much as anything, is to hopefully send a message to would-be violators. Don't do that crap, because you're going to suffer the same consequences. But it's the same thing when California went crazy and said, oh, if you steal less than $900, we won't touch you. To the point where The retail stores were telling their staff, let them get up to $900 and get out of the way. And they're in there in the stores robbing them blind with calculators to make sure they stayed under that number. They're condoning crime. And then they try to rationalize it as, well, they don't have anything to blah, 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 because the right took it to no health care, no food, and no horse hockey. You're stealing. Correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't that among the 10 Commandments? And by the way, even if you're not a Christian that believes in the 10 Commandments, isn't that just basic human decency? You don't take other people's stuff. And I feel that way when these Marxists are gathered together with Mondami, by the way, who are all well coiffed. You know that. They got vehicles or subway fare or Uber money, and they all got expensive phones and makeup and clothes. And they're sitting there saying tax the rich. Who the hell do they think pays the taxes? It's the rich. We already tax the hell out of the rich. My gosh. I know I get fired up about this. But this is kind of rich, pun intended, is that it was on, when he was sworn in, he kind of had 2 swearing-in ceremonies. But when he was sworn in earlier in the week, he was actually taking his oath, private ceremony at the old City Hall subway station. It was abandoned in 1945. Guess what? It was built by a private company, and for a long time, private companies operated the subways in New York. He was literally this Marxist, this communist, highlighting the success of capitalism. But he's so stupid he doesn't even know it. That's where he chose it. You've heard this, right? This is totally true. What an idiot. Coming right back.
SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Well studio. It's Friday. That means it's time for Kelly Bennett, multimedia journalist, SuperTalk Mississippi News. What's happening, Kelly?
Morning, gentlemen. Hey, how's it going with you?
Oh, going fine. Just kind of living off the adrenaline, I guess, with about 3 hours of sleep last night. Headed down to the Sugar Bowl and had a bunch of fun. But we're here, and we're making our way through it, and been talking about that and a lot of other stuff as well. And you just you sent me a note, said that there's a story you guys are going to be putting up on the SuperTalk Mississippi website about this, right? The Sugar Bowl.
Well, actually, I'm going to share this with you guys, and we've already got all the details on the Sugar Bowl up online. If you want to know about that game, we've got all the plays and all the good stuff. But Michael Borky was there last night, our Sports Talk Mississippi host, and he told me a cool story. But let me start at the beginning for some people who maybe stayed up late last night and don't even know yet. Yeah. Lucas Carnero hit a go-ahead field goal with less than 10 seconds left to lift Ole Miss to a 39-34 Sugar Bowl victory over Georgia on Thursday night. It was a nail-biter of a game for sure, and that was all the talk in the newsroom this morning. My news director, JT Mitchell, was like, oh my gosh, I couldn't sleep. And then you get that adrenaline going after a big win like this one, and I think it makes it even more difficult. But he was really impressed with Carnero's performance. I'm talking about Michael Borky. But here's the cool thing. He told us about one of his favorite moments of the night, which was really probably supposed to be a private moment, and he came across it by accident.
after the game, after the press conferences, I walked across the field to the tunnel, the media entrance tunnel, and it just so happened to be the shared tunnel with Ole Miss. And one of the Ole Miss offensive linemen walked out right in front of me, and he saw what I assume is his father. It may not have been, but I assume it was Dad. And he was walking, and he still walked to Dad, but his steps got a little bit faster. And it was a big old father-son bear hug, and I mean, just the big fist slaps on the back of their chest as they were hugging each other. That was the best reaction. No media, nothing. It was seeing that father-son moment after the game, that big old hug. That did it for me, because at the end of the day, they're 18 to 22-year-olds. Trinidad's 23. They are professional football players, but they're still young men. And seeing that, it's supposed to be a private moment, I guess, but a father-son moment was the coolest part of that was the best reaction I saw.
Yeah, I just thought that was a really cool
great.
story. I wanted to share. Yeah. They'll be back in action, by the way. The Rebels will be at the Fiesta Bowl on Thursday, taking on Miami, who beat Ohio State in their quarterfinal game. My sister's a big Indiana fan, so I was getting she lives there. I was getting a lot of texts about that game yesterday, and I was like, yeah, whatever. Ole Miss isn't on yet. I'll get to you later. But tonight we've got Mississippi State trying to close out their football season with a win. They're going to take on Wake Forest at 7 p.m. Central in the Dukes Mayo Bowl at Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte, North Carolina. That game will be televised by ESPN. And if you want some details on that game and what you might expect, the winning coach gets the mayonnaise on him. I don't understand why the loser doesn't get the mayonnaise poured on him. Just a sports question from me.
Well, the bowl season continues, so we'll be pulling for the Bulldogs in the Mayo Bowl. That ought to be pretty good.
Yeah,
good for them.
That ought to be fun.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I want to give a heads up at this point. We have had some really dry, windy weather, and I've been doing a lot of stories about fires this week, home fires, brush fires, that kind of thing. The city of Clinton came out and they placed the entire city under a burn ban until further notice. Over the past few days, they've responded to multiple fire incidents. A lot of these have been grass fires and brush fires, but several have posed serious threats to homes nearby. And this ban, I want to let citizens know, does include the suspension of all burn permits until there's a substantial rainfall. And there are a lot of places where fireworks are illegal. The city of Clinton is one of them. You're not supposed to be shooting off fireworks in the city limits. And fireworks are actually being blamed for a fire at a home in Jackson. It was on Audubon Park at 12:30 a.m. on Thursday. Thankfully, nobody was injured. The fire will be classified as accidental, but I think everybody in the state of Mississippi kind of needs a heads up about the dangers of fire this week. We are supposed to be getting some rain this afternoon. It's probably not going to be enough to eliminate those fire dangers.
Well, I remember, to your point there, Rhino and I talking about the weather pattern predicted for the winter months in Mississippi, and I think it's the La Nina, isn't that right, Rhino? And that has to do with the expectation of the jet stream location east to west to east across the country. And where I'm going with this is it is expected to be drier as opposed to the El Nino, which is a wetter pattern where the storms get caught up in the jet stream and it just takes them, pushes them straight over us. So it's going to stay, I believe, north of us in general is the forecast, which means we're in for a dry winter. So you're right. We got to be careful with the fires.
So. And not just dry, Gerard, but and this is just my gut instinct, having done this for almost 40 years now. It's not just going to be dry this winter. It's going to be warm.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right.
I don't see it getting cold anytime soon. So.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful for it. I've spent a lot of time on my back porch, which is my favorite place in my entire house, right next to my beer fridge.
Okay.
So no complaints from me. Good.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I was in shorts playing golf last weekend. So, because it's in the 70s. Right? Yeah. 80 degrees one day, I think. So, but, yeah, you're right. We got to be careful with the dry conditions. and try to make sure we're not doing anything that would cause a fire. No doubt.
Yeah, fireworks especially.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I have a little bit of an attitude when it comes to fireworks because I get up early in the morning and the folks in my neighborhood obviously do not.
Yeah.
So New Year's Eve, I was like, come on, guys, that's enough.
Yeah.
I got to get up and go to work in the morning. But anyway.
All right, so we got the legislature getting back together next week. And I interviewed Senator Bryce Wiggins last week as well, and he was talking about introducing a bill that would mandate civics in our schools. And I know that we've been playing the clip of that on our news. Tell us about that.
Well, he wants to reintroduce a bill. It would, as you said, require educators to teach students how the government works. Of course, the legislature will convene for the 2026 session on Tuesday. He's hoping the House will take up the bill, and he kind of explained, apparently he introduced this last year, but it didn't go through.
And the way the bill was structured last year was in your middle and high schools to have a year's worth of civics instruction, and you have to pass it. This is how the branches interact, separation of powers, checks and balances, so that we end up with a generation that are engaged citizens.
You know, we put that story up on our social media, SuperTalk pages, Gerard.
Yeah.
And I noticed in the comments section a lot of people saying they already teach civics. And I got to be honest, my kids graduated long ago, so I don't know what they're teaching in school anymore. But I think civics have been removed from the classroom.
Really?
Or I don't see why Senator Wiggins would be trying to introduce this bill. Did you ask him about that? I mean, is it not being taught? Is it already being taught?
I didn't ask him because I got to tell you, I assumed he knew what he was talking about, and that if he's calling for drafting legislation, introducing legislation that would mandate it, I'm kind of wondering, Kelly, if some, and I'm sure we'll get some text on the text line, if some districts do require it and some don't. But it's because it's not a DOE state level requirement, thus it's not universal, and that may be what the senator is attempting to do here. I agree with him. I think this would be good policy for the state.
I took civics when I was in high school.
Me too.
I don't know why they would have taken it out if they didn't. You know, while we're on that kind of realm, mandatory driver's ed is supposed to come into effect in the 2026 school year. So they're going to be teaching that again soon. Yeah.
Real quick before you go, we're up against a break, but the school choice issue is going to be front and center, right?
I think it's going to be first out of the gate in the House. My prediction, House Speaker Jason White will get that introduced first thing so they can start the debate, because it's a big debate, a very layered topic. There's a lot to school choice and a lot of different areas of school choice that could end up being debated.
The House may send a bill to the Senate next week, literally. That's kind of the impression I'm getting. They got it teed up, ready to go.
I think they will.
Yep.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, Kelly. Happy New Year. Talk to you soon.
Happy New Year. Y'all have a great weekend.
You too. Coming right back, folks.
The Curve. Let's go.
You shake my nerves and you rattle my brain. Too much love drives a man insane. You broke my will, but what a thrill. Girl, in this your wreck is just quitting balls of fire. I let that love all I thought it was funny. You came along and you moved now, honey. I changed my mind, but it's fine. Girl, in this great is just quitting balls.
Great balls of fire. Another talented Mississippian. I know there's a lot of controversy about his attachment to the state. We're back in the Element Wealth studio. Just looking through Mondami's speech yesterday, and we shared with you before we talked to Kelly Bennett from the news department about how he chose to conduct his initial swearing in at an abandoned subway station. And it's beautiful. I'm looking at some photos of the inside of it. Of course, the attention to detail and the architecture and the use of certain materials back in those days, a little different than today. Certainly in a subway station, you weren't as concerned about aesthetics as today, more with functionality, and that's fine, except this was a private company that built and operated this station, and it's interesting to look at kind of the cost comparison. I know you're shocked at this, that it turns out that there's a lot of fare dodging in the subway stations, in the subways, I should say, in New York City. And the government spends about $7.3 million on fins, which are like designed to keep people from getting on the subway without paying a fare. Turns out they're ineffective, and they say it's making dodging the fare even easier. I'm just shocked the government would waste money like that. So,
the fins in question look kind of like dividers between urinals and a bathroom stall, but they're a thinner metal material.
Okay.
So if you didn't have tough hands, or if you weren't wearing gloves or something, it would be less easy to use it for leverage to get over the turnstile. But if you have any semblance of calluses on your palms, or if you're taking some gloves around with you, it pretty much just gives you a little bit more leverage to get up and over the turnstile.
Interesting. So it's basically a waste of money, and they still have a problem. The Interborough Rapid Transit Company built this station where Mondami did his swearing in 1904. It was the first of 28 that they built around the city. And it turns out that the cost of that construction, they built 9.1 miles of track that connected the 28 stations, including one under what was then the City Hall, for an equivalent cost of $1.2 billion today. Just phase one of the 2nd Avenue subway that is being built by the government cost 4 times that to go less than 20% of the distance with a tenth of the stops. $4.45 billion for 1.8 miles of track and 3 stations. I'm just shocked that government would be so inefficient as compared to the private sector. Phase 2 of that project expected to cost $7.7 billion to add 1.5 miles of track. Man, so the old station where Mondami was sworn in was shuttered in 1945, and essentially the government took over. And it's been downhill since then. But I just thought that it was fascinating that this self-proclaimed democratic socialist, and he wanted you to know in his speech yesterday, Rhino, he's not apologizing for that. That is who he is. I am a democratic socialist. He declared it. He pronounced it.
Otherwise, he's worthless.
Pretty much. And you've seen the people that he's appointed to the various positions. So are they. Without a clue. It's the Joe Biden filling out the chessboard. One of them, one of those, one of these. Really is incredible. Oh, man. But this sort of flowery speech that he made, I'm just concerned that the positive attitude toward this line of thinking for this philosophy is gaining steam in this country. And that bothers me. And I think that's largely because I can't say people have short memories. It's because these people are oblivious to where this goes, right? They just don't know.
They're the useful idiots.
That's exactly what it is. It's just kind of blind bliss, I guess. Yeah. So they don't realize the negative, deleterious effects that humankind has experienced from these policies through the hundreds of years, honestly.
Because even if presented with the historical evidence of communism's failures, they will respond in one of two ways. Either they'll respond with, well, we haven't done it the right way yet.
That's true.
It hasn't really been tried yet. Or they'll just think you're lying to them. They'll think that somebody in history had it out against the communists, so they decided we're going to write history to make communism look bad. As if the world is some magical, fictitious land that you can just decide what is and isn't reality.
In this statement...
Because they spend so much time in La La Land, where reality isn't real.
Well, here's an example. And you see this all the time from the left. It doesn't matter if it's health care or child care or education or anything and everything else, food, that they want people to obtain without any personal cost or investment in those goods and services. In his speech, he says, when he's going through the diatribe, we're going to make buses and free and stabilized homes and the cost of child care, blah, blah, blah. These policies are not simply about the cost we make free. That's literally what they believe, that they are free. They're just fabricated out of thin air. You're pretty powerful if you can do that. You can't, you fool. But the lives we fill with freedom. Really? Confiscating one's assets, skimming off the top, and shoving it out the door to the recipient class? That's freedom? Haven't we seen enough of that? The government shouldn't be in the child care business, period, in my view. Am I off on this? I keep thinking about, why in the world do we have grants for child care? What is that all about? And are being scammed?
Because the left, no matter how many different ways they try to say they're not, they have been and always will be in favor of certain forms of slavery. Because they believe the work product of your sweat, blood, and tears belongs to them, is rightfully theirs, simply because they might have less.
So true.
Instead of looking inward and realizing they're just a bunch of worthless losers.
Well, and also on the C Spire text line, we talked earlier, he did do a swearing in with his hand on the Quran, right? I mean, because that's his religious faith.
Because to Islamists, the loony left are useful idiots.
That is true.
They will give the government more control, and once the government has a whole bunch of control, then the Islamists can vote Islamists into government positions of power and do whatever the heck they want to.
And in his speech, by the way, he made this statement: we will provide our own answer to that age-old question, who does New York belong to? Well, my friends, we can look to Madiba and the South African Freedom Charter. New York belongs to all who live in it. What the hell does that mean? What does that mean? It doesn't matter. I guess it just gets...
It means they want New York to look like Johannesburg.
Oh, great. Fantastic. You're right. It's the useful idiots that will, of course, just jump up and down and clap like trained seals. Just incredible. On the C Spire text line, the Quran strongly condemns stealing, particularly, I can't pronounce it. I guess it's a reference to the section of the Quran, the specific citation there, which prescribes cutting off the hands of both male and female thieves as a deterrent and punishment for their crime. And, of course, that was sent to us when I was talking about the policy in California that basically ignored thievery under $900. Just don't touch it. Don't mess with it. Don't address it. Don't arrest. Don't convict. Don't prosecute. Don't punish. I don't know what that person's trying to tell us there. We're coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
Holly up a Miss
2, 1.
on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays, a little Tears for Fears, bumping us into this final segment of Hour 2 on the program. First one of 2026. We are pleased you're with us today. Yeah, so I can't get over this. The warmth of collectivism, of course, as the mayor of New York is calling for, that we will replace the frigidity of rugged individualism with the warmth of collectivism. You know, that warmth that requires force and coercion, right? Okay, you either do this or we're killing you. Literally. That's how it works. These people don't get it, do they? Just unbelievable. On the ceasefire text line, it's full of idiots, but we have them in many places, no doubt about it. Also talking about civics on the ceasefire text line. I taught government to seniors for 12 years, retired in 2011. It is my understanding they moved it to 10th grade now, but it was required, and I believe it is still taught at Northwest Rankin. Appreciate you letting us know that. So I can only assume, though, that Senator Wiggins, who wants to require that as part of a universally in the curriculum across the K-12 schools in Mississippi, must not be a state-level requirement. I can only imagine that if he's seeking to draft legislation and enact a law that would make it a requirement. I took it in the 9th grade, half a year of Mississippi history and half a year of civics. So, but this individual here tells us that looks like taught it to seniors government and then that moved it to the 10th grade. Interesting. So Casey Waters on the coast, Ocean Springs, a member of the school board down there, says, I did a deep dive into our history standards several years ago. There is no requirement to study Church of England, or why the Pilgrims left to come to America. They only teach about riots and protest in oppressed groups. They teach our children to be activists. That's terrible. I believe you, Casey. I know my daughter, I think I've shared this before, when she was a teacher, 9th grade, she said they really didn't do anything particularly unusual or special for 9/11. And though she taught English, she would spend the entire class on that day reviewing the whole 9/11 incident. Often, first time the students had ever heard about it. Now, they were born after 9/11. I get that. But isn't that pretty pivotal in our history? We don't teach that anymore? Or we don't teach it at all, perhaps. I don't know. Maybe. Seems like that when you have things like that, no matter what side of the political aisle or the religious aisle you're on, the fact is that is history, and it did have a significant impact on the globe. How can you deny that?
Because everything is based on the lesson plan, and you can't do anything that would possibly confuse the lowest common denominator. So by the time you're in early September, you're nowhere near current events in your history lessons, so you couldn't possibly inject current events into a lesson about, the 1800s. You might confuse somebody.
Oh, me.
Because everything has to be pointed to the dumbest.
But isn't it true that the left, certainly when we here in Mississippi, for example, were seeking to pass legislation, which we ultimately did, that just very simply says you can't teach in a classroom that one race is superior or inferior to another, right? Or that bears responsibility for past actions simply because they happen to share the same color of skin. That seems pretty straightforward to me. But no, they were going on and on. I know I've talked about it. I'm sitting in the gallery a few years ago when they were debating this legislation in the Mississippi House from where it originated. And they were saying, yeah, well, the kids are not going to know about our true past history. They won't learn about the Civil War. They won't learn about the Emancipation Proclamation. They won't know Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier in baseball. I'm sitting there, horse hockey. Nobody's saying you can't teach that. This bill doesn't say that. So what you're saying then, you representatives that are standing up in opposition to this legislation, that you want us to teach in the classroom that one race is superior or gets privilege or the other is inferior or what, however you want to do it. You want to teach that sort of human inequality?
Democrats do.
For political gain, of course. Yep. Coming right back.
They're worthless.
It's terrible. Coming right back after Fox News, Super Talk News. Hour 3 of Middays is next.
Beyond political posturing. You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It is Middays from the Element Wealth Studio on this
Friday, y'all.
First one in 2026. So, one of the other things they did, Mondami that is, just want to pass this on, and then we're going to talk about some state stuff going on here in Mississippi. But it's a big school district in New York. And the mayor in the city picks the person who heads the public schools within the 5 boroughs of the city. And so one of the things that the person that Mondani has appointed, Kamar Samuel's going to be running the city's public schools. He's known for, we talked about this on the program, essentially eliminating the gifted and talented programs in the Upper West Side District where he's been superintendent since 2019. This, of course, also triggered by the George Floyd situation. Oh, my gosh. Well, of course, that's because that it's the Asian kids and often the white kids. Just in their view, just too many of them are achieving and attaining the criteria for admittance. We can't let that happen, so we just got to get rid of the program. Rather than trying to, why don't we find out why the minority kids aren't faring as well? Why aren't they doing as well in the testing and whatever the other standards are? Let's help them, not punish the others.
Asking that question is racist. And the results to answering that question are really racist.
But it's okay to say that showing a voter ID, a photo ID, that you can't require that of the minority population because they just can't get that done. That's the most racist thing you could say. Right there. They can't get a photo ID.
But
what do you mean?
The people that say it have a D by their name, so they get a pass by the Democrat voters and the mainstream media toting the water for the Democrat Party.
Unbelievable.
And all the useful idiots don't know what to get riled up about if the mainstream media doesn't spoon-feed it to them.
That's so true. So here's all you got to know about the guy that Mondami has chosen to oversee the public schools in America's largest city. One of his biggest fans is somebody named Nicole Hannah Jones. You may recall that, maybe not, but you will when I tell you this. This is
a worthless waste of oxygen.
Correct. New York Times journalist who infamously created the 1619 Project.
Just invented history out of whole cloth.
Yeah, basically claims that slavery represents really the essence of American history. That's like the only thing this person even wants to talk about with respect to the history of this great nation is slavery. We still see it today. They're still stuck in 1860. Everything is. They point to that. I saw it at the state capitol when we were trying to pass this law that would ban schools from teaching that one race is inferior or superior to another. They brought it up then. Nobody's saying we should ignore that terrible part of our past. I don't know anybody on the right that doesn't think that that was something that we should hang our head in a bit of shame about. But we didn't personally do it. We don't condone it. We oppose it. We denounce it. But you want to continue to breathe life into it over and over and over. Well, why don't you get off your butt and go do something productive? Plenty of opportunity to go make money. And by the way, you can go to the city of Jackson, and I know I've talked about this numerous times, and if you're a minority, it's a license to go down there and win every contract for anything. It doesn't matter if you can actually do anything. That's highlighted by the fact that we have failing roads, failing water, failing infrastructure all the way around. That's why. Because it doesn't matter whether or not you can actually, do the work that the taxpayers pay for, that the citizens need. That doesn't matter. What matters is what the color of your skin is in the contracting. That is blatant, glaring, egregious racism. And I'm disappointed that the newly elected mayor, John Horn, at this point, has not shown any interest in repealing those policies. And, I've said it many times on this program here. Our legislature, I can't get them to pass law that would prohibit it. And they could give you a million excuses of why. Like, well, then you're sanctioning racism. You're allowing this to happen. And by the way, you want to know why the capital city is so screwed up? That's why. It took a few years to get there, but those policies have been in place for 30 years now. Steady decline all the way through. So hopefully we can get something done in the state of Mississippi along those lines. I am a huge proponent of passing law that just bans that practice in all public sector procurement, where you're giving preferential treatment based on physical attributes and physical profile characteristics.
Now just imagine what the useful idiots in the legislature would be screaming about if they thought you weren't going to get to learn about Jackie Robinson in the Civil War when the law just said you can't say one race is better than the other.
Unbelievable.
When you take away the privilege that is currently being enjoyed, you can only imagine the gnashing of teeth that will cause.
No doubt. But I'm not exaggerating here. I promise you. I don't remember the Democrat rep, the black Democrat rep that stood in front of the entire House of Representatives when the bill was being debated 3 years ago, I think. And he literally said, our kids are not going to learn the history. And he pointed, evidently we've got some historical documents perhaps stored somewhere in the Capitol. He pointed to an area, and I thought that's what he was referring to, but I'm not sure. But he literally did say they won't know who Jackie Robinson is. He got that out of that 2-sentence law? That's crazy. When are we going?
Welcome to the warped mind of a Democrat, where everything is taken in bad faith, unless it's proposed by a fellow Democrat.
In government, where we expect our elected officials to address problems, most of which are created by government, honestly, and most of which what they need to be doing is unraveling bad laws that created problems for society. But in this particular case, when you stand up in front of the entire state officially and make such an asinine, untrue statement that, the kids aren't going to know who Jackie Robinson is because of that 2-sentence law. And just to be disingenuous like that, how can we ever address true problems if we can't define them and debate with fact? We just don't seem to do that anymore. And facts don't matter. I'm looking at, speaking of which, I know Ben from Madison will be curious about this, the latest kind of narrative from the Parents Scampaign. They, of course, an organization that strongly opposes education freedom.
Another group of useful idiots.
This is from December 30th, just a few days ago. What do children in public schools need to thrive academically? The list is straightforward and, most importantly, doable. Here's how we get there. High-quality pre-K available to every 4-year-old to ensure that children are kindergarten-ready, fully fund public schools. What does that mean? Did we just change the funding formula? Aren't we complying with the funding formula? What are they talking about? Including CTE in grades.
Because $1 million a student wouldn't be enough for them.
It's no doubt. Including grades 7 and 8, significant pay raise for certified teachers, $5,000 minimum. And I'm not opposed to discussing a pay raise to stay competitive with the neighboring states and to maybe get some folks in the profession to fill the vacancies, provided we truly need teachers in those, because I'm not convinced the org chart is optimum. But just so you guys will know, every $1,000 raise cost $50 million of general fund spending. So a $5,000 raise, you can do the math, that's $250 million. This is a situation where I feel like this surplus we're enjoying that I don't think is going to last forever. Man, they got a million ways to spend that, don't they? It's kind of like spending the tariff revenue at the federal level.
Meanwhile, other state workers haven't got a raise in God knows how long, while
Correct.
Teachers have gotten 3 since I started doing this show.
Facilities repair and renovation, expansion of literary resources. So, okay, all of this may be worth talking about, but that's not a reason not to do school choice. Coming right back in the Element Well studio.
On SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. Middays. Thanks for joining us today. CC and Senatobia sent this earlier when we were talking about the Sugar Bowl last night. How many coaches will ever be able to say their very first 2 wins as a head coach were both college football playoff wins? First games. I don't know. Right now, that's pretty unique. I would agree. Appreciate you thinking about that and sending us on. Tim in Cleveland says there's no such thing as federal money. It's all taxpayer money. No government has any money except that which it extorts from its citizens. And it's even worse than that, Tim, because remember that all that money the government sends out, half of it now from the federal level, is borrowed. So if we just keep tacking it on to that $38 trillion of debt. And you know, Rhino, when I was talking a minute ago about the misinformation, and I know this is nothing that is profound, but these internet memes that get shared across the social media universe, it's both sides. It's both sides. So there's one going out now that says, hey, the White House has informed that the deficit this year has been trimmed by $600 billion. Not true. We've got 2 months in the books for fiscal year 2026, October and November. And year to date, we've generated a $439 billion deficit. That's the official data from the United States Treasury. I checked it out. They publish this information. There's a monthly Treasury report service. I subscribe to it. It's all laid out right in there. You can read it. And then I verified it through some other media sources, like the Center for a Responsible Federal Budget that's been on our program. They keep up with this stuff consistently, I should say continuously, and they write reports and send out all kinds of information on it. So we got to be careful, man. Let's discuss. We can't solve problems when we're not informed and we're using erroneous input. You can't fix the problem. You think about it in the context of healthcare. How can you cure someone if, oh no, forget that your blood pressure says it's 210 over 140. You don't have high blood pressure. You just got a runny nose. I don't know. That's a crazy example maybe, but you know what I'm trying to say here. Data that physicians who work on the human body talk about all the time, utilize that. Well, it's not just them. That's just one example I'm using, but it just seems like when it comes to government that both sides tend to try to got you and point their fingers in your eye, poke them in the eye, I think's the saying, with data, armed with data that's just not true. It's just simply not true. So here's another one from the left, is that it's really Joe Biden. He's the one that started clamping down on all the fraud up in Minnesota, and there are like 47 indictments, and just they go on this diatribe that, oh yeah, Joe Biden and Tim Walz, they were all about trying to identify all this misspending. So here's the truth. You know, I see stuff like that and say, wait, that just don't sound right. You know, and you can, I know you do this, I do it because that's our line of work. But you start going down the old rabbit hole to dig up, what does this really mean? There's something to this, but what does this mean? Okay, so I figured it out. It is true that in Minnesota they're so bad at administering these programs. It's true, during the Biden administration, SNAP fraud. Massive SNAP fraud. Are we shocked? No. And it is true that even the Biden administration, and this would be the faceless bureaucrats, probably someone in there left over from the Trump administration of the first term, 45, saw this and pursued it. It is true.
Especially considering the whistleblowers started raising red flags about Somali fraud in Minnesota way back in December of 2017.
That is true. And it is
fairly certain Biden was not in the White House in December of 2017.
Taking this long to get that out there, which is just another example of the inefficiency of government. And the fact that there's no sense of urgency. Again, in the private sector, you're leaking money like that, dude, you're already bankrupt. But when you have access to an unlimited supply through the printing press and through the Treasury auctions, it's surprising, right, that you get complacent. You don't care. It's not my problem, as you say. But here's the truth about what Biden did pursue vis-a-vis fraud in Minnesota. It was SNAP fraud. And though I know this isn't nothing, it was $250 million. But the memes all say it was tens of billions. It wasn't. It was $250 million. Now, I don't take that at face value from one report. I found several that had all researched this. It got reported even locally, believe it or not. It took a while in Minnesota. It is true that there were a lot of people that were on the take, involved, and they did get indicted, and they were punished. On the other hand, so what's happening is the left's trying to equate that to what's happening that we've all witnessed in the last couple of weeks with respect to the Somalian money laundering, except that's tens of billions of dollars. Now it looks like it may be upwards of $18 billion. We already know it's 9, but every day the onion gets peeled back a little more and it grows. So again, I'm not trying to poo-poo on $250 million. But $250, you're trying to equate that to $18 billion? Come on. Why is any of it happening? See, that's the problem. Is that rather than trying to say, guys, we got a problem here. These programs in Minnesota are obviously not well run, not well administered. If we've got leakage in SNAP, leakage in Medicaid and child care, we got a problem. Maybe that problem's in the governor's mansion. Maybe it's in the other elected leaders in government. And you've seen reports now that a Republican speaker, I think a few years ago, had spoken up about this and warned about how they were being way too lax with doling out this money in these dumb grant programs that somehow fall under the Medicaid umbrella. Warned about it and got scoffed at. The point I'm trying to make is the Democrats, rather than saying, yeah, we had a problem, Joe Biden at least did address this in the SNAP program, blam, it didn't really deter what's going on in the Medicaid program. Hey, Republicans, let's work together to put a stop at this. Now they're trying to equate it, almost like trying to justify it. Oh, look, Joe Biden, he's all about going after the scam artist.
Joe Biden didn't know where he was 90% of the time.
Doubt. I get mad about that because it's clearly it's misrepresentation at a minimum of fact, but they put it out there and like Democrats, so like somebody sent me that leans the other way, Leslie Marshall, who is a frequent guest on Fox News, and she was on one of this panel shows yesterday, and she was bringing this up. And yeah, so I acknowledge she's right. Joe Biden did, in fact, or at least while he was the president, like you said, he didn't know where the hell he was. That's true. But trying to equate that to $18 billion of Medicaid fraud, where you were warned about that, it took you this long to again expose it. It's frustrating to the American taxpayer and Americans in general that the parties are all about trying to hold my beer, gotcha, what you in the eyes and that kind of stuff for personal political gain, not to truly solve the problem. No interest in that, moderate interest in it at best. And that starts with, let's get the facts. Let's get the data. You know, you talk about data-driven, right? That's a favorite term used by elitist leftists, data-driven. Okay, well, data-driven is it's $18 billion of money laundering to Somalia. And it took a 23-year-old with an iPhone to expose it. You ought to be ashamed of yourself that a 23-year-old got further on this than you and all your education. Golly.
You got to remember, though, whenever they say data-driven, that is cherry-picked data.
That's true.
Usually ignoring data points like per capita or average IQ.
100%. We're coming right back with the Eagles Hotel California bumping us out of this segment. Half an hour of middays remains on this Friday.
To the real part.
Dynamite.
On SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. Middays. Go to myelementwealth.com or call 601-957-6006 to let Element Wealth help you find your balance between income and growth and guarantees. Oil down below the $58 mark, down to $57. So it's kind of hanging around in that territory. It's kind of nice. The price of gas down, as I noticed that. Traveling yesterday. The Dow up 70 points today. The NASDAQ was in the green, now down. A bit volatile. I think we're in for some volatility perhaps for a while, but also can't really take a lot away from this week between Christmas and New Year's, and you have to throw this day in it as well, with New Year's falling on Thursday during the week. So not sure if there's anything to take away from the markets today. I'm extremely optimistic about a big year next year for the country, for the economy, for the markets as well.
It's this year now.
Yeah, pardon me. I'll be making that mistake for a while, I'm sure, as we all will, whenever we write a date or say one. Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. But with the tax cuts kicking in, I think, in this artificial intelligence revolution that is going strong, and we're seeing some resilience there when some of the naysayers were out there predicting it's a bubble and all that sort of stuff. Doesn't seem to be the case at all. NVIDIA reported they have a backlog, a pipeline of orders that is about double this past reporting year relative to the incoming reporting year. And so,
yeah, the chipboards aren't the strangle point at this point. Right now, the shortage is in RAM.
Yeah, plain old memory. And we've seen that before. Gosh, I've endured a few of those cycles back in the day. And you can't always put your finger on what would be causing it. Of course, most of that made in Taiwan, in the Pacific Rim. We're heavily reliant on silicon-based products for that. And that's something I hope we change and improves. It does appear, have you seen this, that China looks like they may be backing off on their saber rattling around Taiwan a bit, finding that maybe it's not in the CCP's best interest. And it could be some intelligence they gained, right, from what this country's response may mean. And guess what? Joe Biden ain't in office. That makes a big dang difference. It doesn't mean that this president has to be aggressive. It just means that he's sending a message that we mean business. Back off. And that's a strong deterrent, as it should be.
Yeah, because at this point, like all the prognosticators say that if China were to claim Taiwan and invade Taiwan, they would do so in the hopes that they would then be able to use Taiwan's manufacturing ability to enrich themselves.
Yep.
The publicly available response to Chinese aggression to Taiwan by the U.S. would include the U.S. Navy taking control of every major shipping lane and disallowing Chinese vessels from conducting global trade. So if they do take Taiwan in hopes of enriching themselves, they're just going to be sending money in a circle within the sphere of influence that they would have, which would be rapidly shrinking by the hour.
I believe they have come to that conclusion. I really do. And I do think that there would be military consequences if they were to move in. And
but internally, they can't give up on the very public display of we will reunify China that they're saying all the way from Mao down, or Xi down, excuse me.
Yeah.
That it's to save face internally while acknowledging they aren't as big and bad as they think they are.
Yeah. And that's a big thing in their ideology, right? It's all about the projection of strength. And I think as much as that's, don't think about overthrowing us, right? They've got to kind of keep that at bay. And they're constantly looking over their shoulder for that. Constantly. We're seeing this kind of unfold in Iran right now, are we not? Seeing some mobilization, perhaps, of the people saying we're fed up with this crap. Good.
And a pretty strong crackdown by the Iranian government, which has drawn condemnation from Trump himself.
Yep. And I'm actually optimistic that there may be a change there. And here's what I think, from always thinking in terms of the global economy and, of course, the domestic economy. That happens, that stabilizes, I believe, the supply of oil. Because that's always a powder keg we're worried about, right? As soon as anything happens in that region, the oil traders go crazy. Oh, my gosh, it's going to interrupt the supply of oil, and they trade it up, right? And they're not always wrong. I'm not saying that. But just instability in general makes investors jittery, as it should. So just the geopolitical influence on economic activity is a big deal.
And not just economic activity. I mean, if you had Iran leave the Dark Ages and rejoin modern Western civilization through an overthrow of the Iranian Islamic regime, then you take a pretty big piece off the game board as far as international terror.
Totally true.
Iran is one of, if not the world's largest sponsor of Islamic terror around the globe.
Yeah. And we know that.
Whether it be training or resources that they sell to terrorist groups.
Yep. Gosh, just imagine if our efforts and our cycles were spent on productive activities, not destruction of people and property. How much more prosperous, not to mention safe, the world would be just to eliminate that threat. It's huge. Well, I pray that the freedom-loving Iranian people do overthrow. I'd like to see it return to, I always marvel at the photos of Iran and Iraq from the 70s. Looks like any average American city, from the skyline to the streets to the dress, all the above, right? It's westernized. And they got radicalized, and they went back to the Dark Ages, and then it started to pursue the ideology, the goal of just eradicating the infidels. That's when the world turned upside down, starting with taking Americans hostage in the Carter era under a weak president that opened the door for that, honestly. You know, I've talked some on the show about how I find it rather intriguing that so many people who just want to stop the build-out of data centers use data centers to promote their opposition. And it's Liz Warren and Bernie Sanders, and unfortunately there are a lot of people that would consider themselves conservative and right-leaning. They also. So is this an area where Bernie Sanders and AOC and people on some people on the right, are they aligned? Because they both seem to be calling for a moratorium. But, right, oh my gosh, the fear-mongering. This is so remindful of your buddy Greta
Thunberg.
And the whole climate change deal. It's what it looks like. It's a fish and tail that's gone from, they're using this much water to like godzillion, trillion, billion, million gallons of water.
Well, the argument from the left comes from an ignorance of reality when it comes to the climate and weather.
Yeah.
The argument from the right seems to come from an ignorance of progress, technology, and an unwillingness to move ahead.
I think you're right. And so I guess I'm going to say again, so I actually started...
It's ignorance all around.
You're right. I actually started just commenting on X and where they're posting all this stuff, these videos and these statements and comments, and these real serious people. I'm here on the site, and look, they're taking all the food and the water, and I mean, it's just a fear-monger. So I go out there, kind of tongue-in-cheek, said, oh, that's real nice. You're using data centers to protest data centers. They come back and say, no, we're not. They literally don't understand.
Ignorance.
Where the hell do you think that tool that you're using to produce and the other tools you're using to distribute those videos are housed and powered? Do they not get that?
It's because social media has convinced the profoundly ignorant that they are profound.
That's exactly right. Final segment on this first Friday. The first show of 26 is next.
I'm Congressman Mike.
We'll do it live on SuperTalk Mississippi.
I think the point on this data center thing is we are the cause of the explosion in the construction and the build-out. That if all these people that are out protesting, there's a real simple fix. Get off the internet.
Yeah, I was telling you on the break, I saw somebody this morning on my social media feed hashtag activisming their way to virtue signal glory about how using an obviously AI-generated meme to protest against data centers using water on social media, using data centers to spread it.
Unbelievable. So, the point there that we got to add is that not only are you using just conventional software and creating something without engaging artificial intelligence, you're actually utilizing artificial intelligence, which uses more resources. More, right?
And the ultimate irony is this person considers themselves an artist.
Oh, my gosh. But they used AI to create this meme to make their point.
The intelligence to be able to understand or recognize that the meme they were sharing was obviously AI generated.
Completely. So I've actually posted comments on Bernie Sanders' post where he's calling for this moratorium. Now, honestly, his isn't, as you know, his reasoning isn't so much about the use of water and causing electricity rates to rise.
He's just pissed off that people are going to get rich.
It's exactly right. He thinks it's going to create an even wider wealth gap. He's right, because there are people who will leverage those tools to make more money while everybody else is bitching about the people that have more money than them.
While refusing to acknowledge that there are a whole bunch of people much worse off than the average American currently living in India that have made roughly $5 billion using AI to generate YouTube videos.
100%. And I've said it as a prediction on this show, and I'm still standing on it, that within the next 5 years, we will see the creation of the first company with one employee that produces $1 billion a year in revenue. I'm convinced that's going to happen as a result of all these tools. Last week, I shared the 13 under 30 newly minted billionaires across the world, 8 of them based in the United States.
And how many other countries are in the world?
I don't know, but a whole bunch. So
depends on how you define it, but I think it's anywhere between 180 to over 200 countries. 200
was the number I had in mind, yeah.
So we got 8 billionaires made in America.
Right.
And the rest of the world combined managed to make 5.
Right. So, and 2, I think, in Brazil, if I'm not mistaken.
But it's the American system we have to decolonize and reimagine.
The one that's so unfair. It reeks of resentment, of envy, of jealousy.
Ding, 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 ding.
It's what it is.
You have hit the nail on the head for the number one driving factor of every idiotic thing that comes out of a Democrat's mouth.
That's totally true.
Envy.
There's no doubt. I completely believe that. And
whether they are envious because they are stupid and the person they're envious of is smart, or they are envious because they are ugly and the person they are envious of is beautiful, you go down the list, every single grievance some leftist will spout is because they are envious and not because it will actually better themselves or society.
Do you think the Bernie Sanders ilk, do you think when they talk about the oligarchs, do you think they know that they are enriching the very people that they're denouncing?
No.
They don't get that, do they?
No.
You see, here's how they became rich, Bernie. Their stuff is so good, you use it, and you hate them. Think about that. You're using something created by people you hate, that you detest, that you loathe. I don't think he gets it. And I've told him, every keystroke you type, every video you publish makes those people richer. If you truly cared about something other than attention that you garner from this dumb narrative, then you disconnect. Be done with it, right?
That was the one thing I could give Greta Thunberg credit for is she wasn't hopping on a jet fuel burning 757 to cross the ocean. She got on a sailboat to cross the ocean to complain about climate change. She at least put her parents' money where her mouth was.
But remember this summer you and I talked about the big climate summit they had down in South America, and they went clear-cut?
Yeah, they clear-cut the rainforest to build a road for these people to go slap themselves on the back and say, look at the good we're doing. We're saving Mother Nature.
From the airport, right? It was from the airport to the conference site. Unbelievable. Oh, man. Well, we're going to have fun next year. There's no doubt. This year now, pardon me. Golly. Out of here today. Have a great weekend. Back with you again Monday. Stay safe and God bless everyone.
SuperTalk Mississippi Media Production.